It's the weekly feed. I'm Kyle Meredith. Sean, Slug, Atmosphere, back again. What's going on?
Oh, you know, just smoking weed and making money.
How's that going for you?
I know, really though, just living, man. Just trying to, keep the head above water, keep the house out of foreclosure. Having kids, playing with Legos.
All the usual things that we would suspect from an underground rap sensation.
Yeah.
I don't know. The Lego movie, as popular it is now, I think you can get away with it. I think now it's cool. Now you can do it.
I think Legos are pretty cool. Yeah, I think it's okay. It's acceptable to admit that you like Legos.
No, my little guy, he's 7. He's just starting to get into them, and I find that that's my open door right there.
It's expensive.
Yeah.
It's an expensive
We'll let the grandparents
habit.
buy them.
That's the way to go. I'm kind of on that as well, But it's good for me because as a kid, I didn't get to have Legos. Space Legos were like a big thing when I was a kid. Now I would have to go to the neighbor's house to play with theirs. So now it's like, oh man, we could totally get Space Legos off of Amazon. You could totally go to like any regular store, drugstore, and find little sets of Legos.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a huge thing.
I tell you, I can't wait till this album comes out. This is what the next one. That's what's going to happen. But in the meantime, you've given us Southside, another fantastic, officially number 7 or 8, somewhere.
We started saying number 7 a few albums ago, and we're just going to stick with 7 from here on out. Yeah, every record is the 7th record from now on. Because I've lost track. You know what I mean?
Well, there's so many EPs and everything else in there.
So from now on, every bio that goes out is like, and on their new 7th album, and I'm just going to
own it.
Keep it easy.
Own it. Yeah. Well, no, but it's been such a great story all the way through. 20 years. Atmosphere. You've been doing it since the 80s.
It's a long time.
Now, when I look at that, rap is not like rock. It's not like pop. It's a young man's game usually, and you see them just fall by the wayside all the time. When you look back to some of your favorite artists, you look back and like, oh, you know what? I haven't heard from them in 10 years. They just disappeared. But you haven't. And not only that, but you thrived.
I think we're gonna see a new thing with hip hop, because it's not pop, and pop is for the kids, mostly, But with hip hop, we're gonna start to see it and see it hold its own. You already have classic hip hop stations on satellite radio. You got 40 and 50-year-olds that grew up listening to hip hop now, and so they're gonna stay true to the stuff they want to hear. And I think that over the next 10 years, we will see it not necessarily be such a youth-orientated movement. Like it'll still be, the spark will still be with the youth, and the youth will still dictate what direction it goes. Yeah. But I think there'll be room for us to get old in this,
Yeah. You're by no means old, by the way, but
well, for rap, for hip hop, yeah.
I don't know if that's really an answerable question, but what's the reason why were so many that just came and went after a few albums, even really successful ones that came and went after a few albums, but you've been able to kind of figure out how to keep it going and stay fresh and play the game?
I wish I had an answer for that, because I'd write a book about it and I would sell it to all of my peers.
It was an easy few $1 million right there, right?
Yeah, I don't know why we've been fortunate enough to be able to hold on to what we do. I'm just glad that we have. This is the best job I've ever had. You
always refer to it as a job too. I love that. You call this a job.
Well, it is. It's a hobby when I'm in my house doing it, and it's a labor of love when I'm creating ideas and things. It's a good time when I'm on the stage in my zone, but when I'm here talking to you, or when I'm dealing with a lot of the extra stuff, I don't see that as like part of the love. Don't take it personally. No. But I don't love interviews. You know what I mean? Like
nobody likes to be sit there and just ask questions.
Yeah. And so in that regard, I call it a job so that I'll treat it like a job. I feel like a lot of people that don't want to call it a job, they end up losing touch with maybe some of the ethics that you should bring to the table when you're actually working on this, And so I do refer to it as a job because I want to treat it with the respect that I would have to treat any place that I could get fired from. Because truthfully, I could get fired from this job,
People vote with their wallet kind of a thing.
Yes, the day's going to come where they're going to be like, hey, we're going to have to let you go, force you into early retirement. I'll take the package. and I'm out.
Is it kind of bizarre at this point, having been in the game so long, to see your influence in all of those other artists, you know? But you can see it pretty wide range, and even when you get to like, you know, some more of the alternative stuff like Matt and Kim or 21 Pilots or stuff like that, to kind of say.
Can you explain to me where my influence is on Matt and Kim? I would love to be able to take some credit for something like that.
I don't think that they would exist without, and it might not come down to you specifically, but there's whatever movement, whatever you want to call the genre that you were really, the niche genre inside rap that you were a part of. I think that does come out of that stuff. You see Matt and Kim live, you know it's more beats than it is guitar.
I feel as if maybe we were all influenced by some of the same stuff. Like, I don't know, you know, I love having people say these things about me because it feels good, it's validating. But like, in reality, I think that a lot of these artists were merely influenced by some of the same stuff I was. And a lot of that isn't even music, but it's the age group we're in. So the films we saw, the movies, the books we were forced to read, or the books we chose to read, and the albums that we purchased. I think, you know, I'm just another cog or another piece in that big thing, you know. I feel as if like I don't necessarily see artists and go, oh, you know, that guy came out of my womb, as much as I think we kind of came from a similar branch of a tree, you know.
Yeah. It's a nice humble way to see it, but you know, maybe because it's part of my job and everything. Like, if you came from something, then there's probably a good chance that they came from you.
Well, I mean, I think we're all derivative of something.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
And so, you know, I don't think you could necessarily draw a line from Matt and Kim to KRS-One the way I hope you could draw a line from me to KRS-One.
Right.
But I do think that you might be able to find somewhere a line that went from Duran Duran to me and also to Matt and Kim.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so in that regard, but I think that just comes back to, like, you know, I think the minute I start taking credit for any kind of influence is when it's time for me to go get another job.
Time to hang it up right there.
Yeah.
Do you find it at all harder to make albums at this point? You know, as life does take over, there's been a lot of talk about Southside about, okay, you know, if the last album was what all the critics called you guys maturing and everything and growing up, and now here you are and you're in that stage of life, I know that stuff starts to, it's not as easy. It's to just set, like, I got an idea, I can write this down, I can make this song. You have to make time for it. Do you find it's harder at all to make the album?
I feel like I've been kind of lucky in the sense that that Ant makes the albums. He hands me a batch of beats at a time, and I sift through them. And when I hear something that gives me a visual, that's where it starts, and that's where I find whatever I'm going to write about. You know, I don't necessarily have to like go, oh man, I need an idea.
Right.
I need an idea. I basically I'm allowed to listen to the music and let the music kind of set the tone, and then the ideas start to kind of come, you know. And it's like, I don't know how to react to when people go, oh, this is his record where he's maturing, because if you were to tell my wife that I'm maturing, she's gonna be like, no, you know what I mean? So it's a thing where it's like, I kind of just let people make their statements and say what they want about what we do, because I don't really know what it is, you know. I wrote a song the other day called Selma Hayek that is just ridiculous. It's far from mature, but I'm sure people are going to hear it and be like, oh, he's all grown up now. I don't know.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I guess it's the arc of the themes that come along with it. You know, if it's all about aggression in the early times, and then, you know, you're writing about relationships that isn't, you know, to hell with her and all this stuff.
I could see that, and I think that's just, I guess you could call that maturing. I guess I see that more as like smartening up. You know, like, aggression's a great example. You know, you reach a certain age where you're like, you know what, just beating my fist against the window is not necessarily going to get me what I need. Even though that's what I thought I had to do then, now I know that there's ways to like manipulate the situation and get more out of it, you know? And so in that regard, I think that I have just as many issues with the world as I ever had. I'm just as dissatisfied as I've ever been with the way things are, but I've just learned how to choose my battles better, and I've learned how to maybe express myself more direct and more confident. And nowadays I don't have to necessarily hide my opinions or my messages inside of defense mechanisms, which in a way, I think, people maybe, when you look at the older stuff and see how I was shoving everything inside of these defense mechanisms, that's relatable, especially to people who are in the same age that I was in when I was making that music, And so whereas now at 42, the songs I'm writing might not be as relatable to a 25 or a 26-year-old,
Right.
but hopefully when I'm gone, they'll be 40 and they'll hear it and go, oh, I get what he's fucking talking about here. Sorry about the
you're good,
F-bomb.
you're good.
Okay, cool.
It's a video.
Okay, yeah. But again, like that's so out of my hands that I can't really spend too much time like concerned about it,
With your lyrics, do you see yourself going more direct on you're talking about things you're seeing wrong with the world. I look on your Twitter page, and of course cop shootings are a big thing right now. It seems like a passion thing. Do you see yourself going, I'm going to get away from home life, I'm going to get away from relationships, and I'm going to start looking at these hard facts about the world? I mean, do you see yourself going that way?
It's hard to say because I've always tried to take my ideas and opinions about where the world's going and put it into the narrative. Now, it's no different, but yeah, I do see myself as maybe being a little bit more direct with those narratives, Like, I don't know that I'll ever be the guy that makes a song called Stop Killing Black People, Please, because it's so direct and it's also very, it can be, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a fine line you walk between activism and art, because once you can turn your art into becoming preachy really fast, and I don't even like that kind of art myself. So I don't want to make preachy art. I want to be able to preach, obviously, but I want to be able to do it in a way that it tricks the listener into agreeing with me. Me and Anthony always kind of called it sprinkling frosting or candy on top of the vegetables, but to be fair, I do find myself serving vegetables up a little bit more often that aren't necessarily smothered in.
But you've done a good job of taking your entire fan base along with you, taking along with the different styles and version, and even as you cross over from, the whole story about going from sampling to more live instrumentation, it doesn't seem like you've lost anyone any step of the way. So I don't think that people would be completely against it or surprised, as you serve more vegetables without the frosting.
I'll be honest. I'm very fortunate that this whole time, this whole time that I've been doing this, people have allowed me the room to be myself without necessarily having to take on too much imagery or project things that were too much of a caricature here and there. There's definitely moments in my life where I started to feel like I was becoming a caricature, because when you start to gain a little bit of notoriety and when you start to, it's easy to slip into some of the pitfalls of that with maybe substance abuse or chasing the party or whatever. But aside from that standard pitfall, I've really been lucky that people are accepting of me even with those pitfalls. I wear them on my sleeve and I go, hey, oops, and I don't have to pretend like that I'm cool. I don't have to pretend to be the cool guy all the time, And so with that, I feel like that might have something to do with why people have stuck with us through all of the poor decision making that we've made as a unit. You know what I mean? Like, because it's not like we've just done everything right and made a 1,000 incredible albums. We've had, we've made mistakes along the way, but I feel as if it's almost like people see that as part of our humanity and they allow us the room to do that. They don't necessarily hold me to the same light that we hold our stars, or even like some of the more, I don't want to say names because I don't want to.
No, we have the big. It seems like when you get to a certain point, everybody's ready for you to fail. So any slight mishap that you do is really looked at as a catastrophe.
Man, people want to scrutinize you. They want you to fail, but they also want you to get back up again.
Sure, no, that's always the thing. You look at cliches that do that. I mean, even thinking of the cliches like Britney, everybody tore down Britney and then was ready to push her back up, and that was 10 years ago at this point. I think I'm dating myself.
See, I didn't want to say any names. You said it for me.
There you go.
There you go.
That's it right
I wasn't
there.
trying to throw Brittany under the bus because, she's my homie. I'm not trying to diss her or nothing, like.
I find it weird when you look
Love you,
at when you look at those mega stars and the way mainstream hip hop is going. It's almost like it's weirder than it's ever been. It's like you didn't go to them. It wasn't atmosphere. It's like, man, I got to write a pop hit to start making money. It was so funny to see Kanye, Beyonce, Jay, all the big ones start making the weird stuff coming, like taking their inspiration from indie stuff. When you've got Jay-Z going to Grizzly Bear concerts.
Sure,
you know, it's like.
Well, I feel like we reached a place in hip hop where people were finally, and I really give Kanye a lot of credit for this. And also, I would maybe even say Lil Wayne, because he was a kind of a pop icon there as well, where they allowed people to let their guard down and let their freak flags fly a little bit and not have to be the cool guy. You know what I'm saying? It's like, now don't get me wrong, Kanye and Wayne are both still the cool guy, but there's elements to what they provided that allowed the audience, the fans, to be like, yo. I mean, here's the thing, man. 10 years ago, if you rode your skateboard through the hood, people were like, why are you doing this white boy shit? You know what I'm saying? It's like, and now you can go to the hood and people are riding skateboards. And I really give a lot of that to artists like Kanye, Wayne, and even like the ASAP kids. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of there's a movement in hip hop that's like
Del the Funky Homo.
Del, you know what I'm saying? There's a movement going on that's allowing people to kind of find themselves, find their own voices. Whereas prior to this, a lot of us were taught you get to be one of three personalities, you know what I mean? And you got to fit into a box. And now it's like kids are allowed to just really,
I love where they're taking it.
Go figure out who they are, you know what I mean? And I think that's important, I think
think of it as the geeks have won, finally the geeks have won.
I mean, I don't know that I would go that far. I think what's happening is that we're breaking down the lines between the geeks and the cool guys. I mean, to be fair, the geeks won with the technology movement. When you started having the guys that were the guys that I just watched that Game Over, that Atari, and they're talking about the parties that they used to throw. That's when the geeks started to win, because it was like, these guys are the rock stars now. These guys are the guys that are developing the things that are going to take us into the future. Whereas the guy that raps really good, you're only cool for 2 years. People are gonna get sick of you in a minute. The rock star, you're only good as long as your next hit.
But that gives the fans the access to suddenly have all of these different genres in their own hand, where they can hit shuffle and everything makes sense.
I feel like I tangented us way out of.
No, it's completely fine. These are the good conversations right here.
I'm not so good at fucking interviews, but. I do my best.
No. Well, to bring it back around, all of that, I think you can hear that in Southside, and I think you can hear that through your entire career. And if each album sets up the next album, as I've heard you guys say before, is it? And it's not on the spot like what's next, but do you already see like this is what Southside was, and this is probably what
the last song on Southsiders. When we turned in Southsiders, we already had some more songs that we were working on, and the last song in Southsiders is the direction that we've been going since Southsiders. It's the last few records we went places that weren't quite as optimistic. We had an optimism thing going on there for when you got towards the end of You Can't Imagine, and you got into the free ones that we were putting out, and the Lemons, and that's All My Friends, and then we got into the Family Sign, which got a little bit darker, even though technically it was, conceptually I was talking about family shit. Musically, it was starting to get a little darker, and then Southsiders, there's a decent amount of stuff on there that I consider to be dark, and I'm trying to I want to make something fun now, or I'm focusing on making funner, more music that is more fun.
Yeah.
Maybe not more fun to listen to, but more fun to make.
Sure.
I have no idea how people are going to hear it or what they're going to take from it, but I'm having a lot of fun making it right now.
That's always the thing, though, like writing dark when you're in an okay spot in life. Like, is it a challenge? Do you have to find a spot, or are you just looking out and that's what's coming out? Like,
I feel like writing dark is easy at any time in life. In fact, it's almost a crutch.
Yeah.
I feel like it's easier to paint with dark colors.
Sure.
See, people relate to pain way more than they relate to happiness, and it's awkward that we react like that. But you know, people don't necessarily. It's really hard to make a happy song and have people enjoy that.
Sure. You become like Michael Franti or something like that. That's
people.
good.
I like Michael Franti.
I don't like Michael Franti's new stuff because it went down that road. He got a little taste of the honey, and then suddenly it's a sound of sunshine. You know,
I feel like people have a easier time grabbing onto the heartbroken songs, the anti-police, the anti-government, the anti-people. You know, the things that speak to our frustrations and our issues and our problems. It's just the real puzzle here is how do you speak to people's frustrations, but in a way that allows you to still celebrate in the moment. And that's kind of what we've been trying to crack. That's the code.
That's where you
that
get
we've
in
been
the line in the Kanye West song.
Yeah. Well, I
Throw
mean,
your hands in the air like you care.
a lot of the stuff that I think we've been trying to do for 10 years is crack that particular code. You know, I mean, right now, I don't know how to judge anymore what songs are your biggest hits, but if you go to the iTunes graph and look at our songs, there's a song called Sunshine that's like bigger than a lot of our songs. And the song's about a hangover, but it's also on this bed of like really kind of almost like clowny.
It's a fun song.
Yeah, exactly,
It's a fun
you know?
song.
And so I feel like we didn't quite nail it with that song, but eventually we will nail it. I feel like when I think of people who nailed it, Stevie Wonder comes to mind as somebody who was always able to like deal with topics and feelings that weren't always positive, but put them inside of music that felt good to listen to, you know, so that you, and Marvin Gaye too, you'd be sitting there singing along with something.
And you're doing Mother, 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 you know, in the ecology. And
that felt good to do, but even though what was really going on was speaking to our frustrations at the same time, you know, and I feel like that's the code to crack for traditional pop music here, you know, and when I say pop music, I don't mean Britney Spears pop, but I just mean like the verse, chorus, verse style of what
I think I'm going to love this new section of Atmosphere, this new chapter.
Oh, man.
Coming up. It sounds like a...
I'm enjoying it, but, you know, you never know. It's like, you know, I got
faith in
that
you.
last record, I got criticized for having too many animal references on the record. I'm like, well, fuck, man, I got a 4-year-old at home, and now a 1-year-old
You know
too.
what?
There's going to be animal references. There's going to be penguins and pelicans and shit. You know,
look at Dylan and the amount of records that he was pumping out, and each record... You're gonna have favorite words when you're working on, you know, a whole selection. It doesn't matter if you've worked on it for 2 years. You're gonna have the things in your mind, and it's gonna be a theme. Nobody
has ever rhymed the word polar bear with as many things as I can rhyme the word polar bear with, and it's just how it is. Deal with it. I'm really looking forward to our future as well. Just because, at this point, you can't. You know, I don't need the validation I needed 15 years ago, 10 years ago. Now, I just want my space to do what I do and to enjoy myself. I'm not necessarily going, what do you think of that? What do you think of that? Do you like it? Please like it. Now I'm just kind of like...
You ran the race, and now you get to be out the stud. That's what's going on.
You know, as long as I don't start mailing it in, as long as I know that I'm spending hours in the basement, like, trying to solve these puzzles, then I don't give a fuck. Yeah. You know?
Well, I can't wait to hear it. Sean, it's awesome to talk to you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Southsiders is out now in stores. Atmosphere, Slug. It's a weekly feed.